Hey guys, welcome to After Hours. Louisa Evans, she's an absolute legend in such a relatively short space of time on Instagram. I think I've been following her since the beginning of her page. She got sober on the 1st of January, 2023. So she's just surpassed 2 years. So yeah, she set up the Sober Rebel on Spotify and Apple and things as a podcast, and it's a brilliant little podcast. I say little, it's not little at all, it's huge. Yeah, it's just great. She gets some amazing guests on, so I was really excited that she agreed to come on after hours. Yeah, Louisa is a bit of a grey area drinker. So, but it was still having a negative impact on her life. And that's what, we need to kind of remember in this situation and life because, not everyone has to have rock bottoms or, be drinking first thing in the morning and get into absolute blackout every single day. As long as it's having a negative impact, whatever that may be, on your life, then it's time to really have a think about giving it up for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and maybe becoming completely abstinent. Sitting on my side of the fence, I am completely baffled that people still drink. I did it for a long time, and I did have some good times, don't get me wrong, but it serves absolutely no purpose in this day and age. So that's my own personal point of view. And I'm sure some of my guests have similar ideology on it. So, yeah, anyway, let's hear from Louisa. Thanks, guys. Louisa, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on After Hours. How are you this morning?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me. How are you?
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. It's a beautiful morning here. I think this is the first one I've done. Have I? No, I did one actually because she was in the US, so we did an early morning one. But yeah, this is great. You're early morning as well. It's best part of the day, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's my favorite part of the day. It didn't used to be, but it is now.
And
And I
I'm
think that's the point,
guessing
isn't
that
it?
since getting sober, maybe. Yeah,
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, when you've got kids anyway, they get you up like at
yeah.
the crack of dawn anyway. But yeah, since being sober, this is my favorite time of the day.
Yeah. I mean, it's just we're wide awake. We can get everything done, and so let's talk. So, what did you? How was your childhood? And when did you have your first drink? That's how we like to start these.
Right. So I was thinking about this. I've made some notes as well because,
Cool.
menopause brain, I can't remember everything. So, thinking back to my childhood, I would say that my childhood was pretty idyllic,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't, I didn't have any trauma. My parents didn't get divorced or anything. There was just nothing. So when I look at some of the challenges I then had,
hmm
I think, well, where did that come from? There was nothing really that could explain it.
hmm
So yeah, it was pretty idyllic. Um, I think alcohol was always like it was the 80s.
Yeah.
So dinner parties, it was always there.
Mm.
But neither of my parents drank heavily. They might share a bottle of wine. My
Yeah.
dad would have two small glasses of wine and be asleep. He was just what I would have called a lightweight.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But it was actually quite funny the one time I did manage to get him drunk when I was older. But yeah, it wasn't anything that I necessarily grew up and saw in a negative light,
Yeah.
though. It seemed very sophisticated.
Yeah. And that.
And I hear that a lot from people that actually you kind of place it on a pedestal because it looks like, oh, well, when I grow up,
Mhm.
I'm going to be able to have a bottle of wine.
Yeah, because they seem to be doing it, without any issue and as you say, they're having it with dinner parties, friends, and they're all having a good time. lubricated or oiled with it, but not over the limit where they're staggering about. They're just kind of enjoying themselves. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, lots of laughter, silliness, not fighting, nothing like that. I never
Yeah.
saw, gosh, thinking about it now, I've had one or two drunken rows
Mm,
um, in my time, but I never saw anything like that. I just saw it as being a rite of passage. And actually, it's quite funny because when I bought my first house with my first husband,
hmm
I was 18. So I was always in a rush to do everything, to tick the boxes. I wanted, to get married. I wanted kids. I wanted the house. I was like 18 years old.
You just wanted to grow up fast. Yeah,
I
yeah.
did, yeah. I had
Yeah.
this impatience, which I don't think has gone anywhere.
hmm
But I noticed that there was a bottle of wine and two glasses and a corkscrew on the side
hmm
in this house we were viewing, like this little starter home. And I just remember thinking, oh, I actually bought the house based on the fact they had a bottle of wine and two glasses on the side because it looked grown up.
And that was put in by the estate agents, I'm guessing, to
I,
make it
I
look.
don't know whether it was
Yeah.
one of, I didn't notice them baking bread or anything else that might have like enticed us in. But it was that idea that, oh, if I get this house, then I'm a grown up.
Yeah.
And I just had this yearning to be a grown up.
Yeah.
And I thought that alcohol was that, you
Yeah.
know. So, and my first husband, who I then married, I don't literally only turn 21. I turned 21, I think, 2 days afterwards, after we
Wow.
married. Big white wedding. We were in the wedding video business, our family business. So we were so used to weddings and we knew everybody in the industry. And so even that was like, oh, I want to have a big white wedding, tick,
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that he didn't drink or he didn't really like drinking.
Uh-huh.
And he even said to me, because by that time I'd sort of got a bit of a taste for it,
Mm.
of a night time having my grown-up glass of wine. Um,
And wait, sorry, when did you start kind of, drinking? Were you any underage drinking, or was it more just like kind
no,
of got 18, and then that's when.
I think it was it. I can't really recall any aside from like a sip of sherry. I wasn't really a party kind of
Well, you were
person.
probably more focused on having everything that you kind of saw out as being, this is me being grown up, the
Yeah.
marriage, the big house, the kids that came later. And yeah, yeah. So I can see that you're focused on that rather than down the park or by the bus shelter drinking hooch or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I must have tried 2020 or
Yeah.
something like that. I can remember a couple of parties,
Yeah, but
uh,
nothing
but
like you were
nothing. I
thinking.
mean, literally, I don't know whether I wasn't invited to them. I don't know. There was never anything going on. We live quite rurally. I
Yeah.
lived in the middle of nowhere. I was far more interested. Probably at that point, I was smoking and
Yeah.
that was my
But
naughty behavior.
again, even then, like the kind of 80s and 90s, I'm guessing it was smoking wasn't. We knew it had dangers, but no one was kind of outlawing at that point. They weren't saying, "Oh, you shouldn't do this." We knew it was naughty, and if you were underage smoking, but I think even then, it was 16. But like nobody really cared if you were going into a shop and buying cigarettes. I mean, I started smoking when I was 14. And it was kind of like people went, "Oh, you shouldn't do that," but it wasn't like, "What are you actually doing to yourself?"
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think my parents were very strict on that one. My mum's an ex-smoker, and my dad was an anti-smoker. In
Right,
fact, my mum
right.
gave up when she met him. And I mean, I was the good girl.
Yeah.
I really was. I didn't want to. So I think in a way I was almost looking for little vices to
hmm
kind of rebel a little bit,
Yeah.
which is bonkers now I look at it because actually I was going along with the crowd. I was doing anything but rebelling.
Yeah.
Rebelling now I've realized is being sober.
Yeah.
It's not drinking or smoking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in those days I did go to the odd party.
hmm
But I remember being very, very ill one night at a party, and that put me off. But it was more, I wanted to be grown up. I wanted to be sophisticated. It was wine. It was sat watching Coronation Street of an evening, unwinding after work. I mean, I
Yeah.
went straight into work. I didn't go to uni. I was working. part-time then at the family business. So I was filming weddings every weekend. So I mean
Yeah,
that
yeah.
takes
So,
social calendar. You kind of you're not going out pubbing and clubbing like all your friends or going to
mhm,
uni because you're working for the
mhm,
weekend. So I think that had quite a big impact on how late my drinking started.
mhm, mhm. But were you? So I mean, I still do a bit of photography, but I used to do weddings when I was younger, and a lot of the first weddings that I did were just friends of friends and things like that. So they would, um, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, here, have some drinks from the bar and all that." Because I was a drinker then, so because everyone else was partying at the wedding, so I would be drinking. I wouldn't get myself completely sozzled or anything like that because I had a job to do. But when you're in that kind of like event and experience, everybody around you is absolutely getting trolleyed. So how was that for you if you were doing the videoing and things like that for it?
I think what helped was that I started filming when I was 14. So I was filming Bride from House, and
Yeah.
we were also my dad was and my mum very, very sort of strict and had certain criteria, and so we dressed a certain way. We
Hmm.
turned up, we made sure that our shoes are clean, little things like
Yeah,
that. It
yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
very much about little things like that. And one of the things was that we never ever accepted a drink because you would get offered drinks, as you know. It wasn't quite, we weren't doing it friends of friends. We were doing it because we'd been hired and dad had gone out and done wedding fairs and marketed, and it was quite a big concern towards the end. We were doing over 100 weddings a year, which is quite a lot when you think all the weddings are kind of between May and September, October time.
Yeah.
That was quite a lot for a little family business.
Yeah. And I
Then by the
guess you're as you say, you started 14, you're just being the consummate professional because, I mean, as I say, I was never any kind of award-winning, wedding photographer or anything like that, but it's sounding like you guys were kind of up there and you've got these wedding fairs. So of course, you don't want your reputation to be spoilt by, oh, well, we had Louisa, she was great, she did a good job, but she was falling all over the place at
yeah,
the end of the day. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, Louisa, just give me 2 seconds. My cat is wanting in. I knew I shouldn't have let her out, but
See, I've got a little puppy down here, so I'm very impressed he's being quiet.
this one normally sleeps all day, and she knows that I'll be at work normally at this time, so she's like,
It's a novelty.
yeah, she'll probably want out in a minute. No, just shush, Leo. Uh, so
But yeah, I think it is that, isn't it? It's that it was it wasn't my reputation really that I was dealing with. It was my parents.
yeah,
So it was I always wanted to do the right thing. And that was the hard, that was a good thing because obviously I was then turning up and I wasn't accepting drinks. But yeah, everybody was getting trolleyed
yeah.
around you. And there were some weddings that we were doing the disco and things, and you get to 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
And there would come a point that I think there's no point in filming anything now because nobody's actually going to want to watch this back.
No, nobody's going to want to have the evidence of them, with the tie round their head as if they're Rambo or something,
Yeah,
and
and
just
that's the bride.
yeah, yeah, and that's the bride. Yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah. So then when did I think you said when you moved into the new house and you were kind of the wine was kind of was that kind of really the start of it or
I
because you've
think
obviously
so.
working long days and it's a stressful job. From my memory, like if you don't get the right shots and things like that, you can't go back and do a reshoot. So it's a very that's one of the reasons why I gave it up. Not because I was crap at it, but just the stress of these 1 days. The passion for me fell out of it because I was just worried so much that the rain was going to ruin the day or this, that, and the other. So was it the stress or how did that kind of develop?
I think again, it's something that everybody thinks is, oh, what a lovely job to do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Immense stress, immense pressure. I was doing it from such a young age. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I was mature. I mean, I was in a rush to get married, for goodness sake.
Yeah, well,
I was
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
mature. I was in a suit. I looked the part. I could do the job.
Hmm.
And so actually, I just think it was never my dream was what I said to Dad in the end when
Yeah.
I said, please, can I stop doing it when I was 30?
And that's
But
a long innings, that's like
oh,
your
I did a long
little, another
innings.
half of your life there. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many weddings we actually did or I've actually filmed at, but
Hmm.
it's got to be four digits, definitely into the four
Yeah,
digits. And it's a lovely environment, but very, very high stress.
yeah.
So I didn't miss it when I stopped, shall we say. I'm being very diplomatic. See, I'm still being incredibly professional and diplomatic.
Of course, because I mean, your parents gave you this amazing opportunity, and I'm
Yeah.
sure, it is a kind of it's a lucrative job, and but again, yeah, like you, like me, when the passion's not in it, you're just kind of like, I don't want to be giving these couples a kind of half-arsed job, and I'm sure you weren't, but do you know what I mean? You get to that point and
Yeah.
you think, I need to do something that's mine now. So yeah, so where did
Yeah,
that
and
lead?
I did, and I think that was very much when I then moved more into marketing. But I did
Hmm.
through my 20s, I worked for the family business then full time, and we had a second business that did TV adverts, promotional films. It did all the kind of corporate work,
Cool.
which then I did all the editing and directing, and I did some presenting on those things. So that was, but again, still Dad's dream. It was cool and it was amazing because
Yeah.
sadly my dad passed away when he was 68.
Oh,
And I'm so grateful that we worked together for the
yeah,
time that we did because we had a ball.
yeah,
We had some really, really great times, some lovely memories, some corking rows. But it was just beautiful to know that I'd had that quality time with him.
yeah, yeah.
So that was amazing. But then I moved into marketing, and then I started really realizing because I was in quite I called my 20s my kind of woe is me decade. I
Mm-hmm.
was in a bit of a, I then divorced my first husband.
Mm-hmm.
I then remarried um, a guy that I should not have married. I shouldn't have given him
Oh,
the time of day. Should not have married. And the marriage actually lasted, we were together 2 years in total, but the marriage itself lasted 7 weeks. And it was such an alcohol fueled
right. And he
relationship.
was a
So I'd
drinker
sort of
as well. Yeah.
yeah, he was a big drinker. So I think I'm very logical.
Yeah.
I'll get onto this a bit later, but I've since been diagnosed with autism and ADHD since
Right.
going sober. So
Right.
it's kind of made me understand why I was looking at tick boxes and looking to kind of make sense of things a lot
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
time.
You wanted everything in its little correct place, and that's right. That's done. I've dealt with that, and
Yeah.
yeah. So your first husband wasn't really a drinker at all, and
No, he
you're
would
drinking.
moan.
He
He
was
would
what?
he would moan at me. He would complain. He was like a third parent, and
I was going to say, was he a
um,
bit older than you?
he was 11 years older than me.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And there was we didn't have a lot in common. There wasn't like a sort of, I look back and I don't regret anything.
Yeah. Of course.
But my second husband then was more the party animal. He was the total opposite.
Mm,
Um, and it just should never have gone further than probably dating,
hmm.
really.
Hmm.
But at that point, I thought, well, if that didn't work, if like the sensible non-drinker didn't work, and I like a drink,
Yeah.
so I need to find somebody who likes a drink, who likes to have fun, who I can chat to. But the only time I could talk to him was when we were drunk.
Yeah.
And then that would turn into rows and arguments. And it was just very, very volatile. There were lots of misunderstandings. There was lots of, now I know, now I'm trained, lots of gaslighting on his part.
Yeah,
Quite
yeah. And
obviously.
I guess you've gone from one extreme to the other rather than finding something, in the middle. It's you've just
Yeah.
gone, right, and I suppose it was your kind of wild streak again. You're like, well, I'll show them. I'm gonna find a guy that's, the same as me, maybe, and just likes to party. So you're what, about your mid-20s, did you
I'm
say?
mid-20s then, and the
Yeah.
other the
Well,
other
you're
sort of
still young,
little I'm
You're still
still so
young now,
young,
Louisa.
but I am, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well done.
The other sort of little bit of information is that with my first husband ticking the boxes, I decided
Hmm.
that the next thing we needed to do was try for family.
Sure.
And I had seven miscarriages, one after the other. Um, And I just thought, I'm not going to have children. So
Yeah.
then when I met my second husband, I still had this tick box in my mind. And it was, I want to have a child. I want to have a child. And then I had a miscarriage with him.
Yeah.
And I thought, right, okay, it's me that's the problem.
Yeah.
And then that really hit me hard. So that's probably why we ended up getting married, I think.
Mm.
Because I thought, well, if we, I didn't know where I was. I didn't know where my head was at. As I say, it was kind of my woe is me decade. I was feeling
Mhm.
very, very sorry for myself. Um, which is quite natural in that situation to feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
But
Also,
I just,
we're still learning who we are because
yeah,
I think I heard the other day that it takes until you're about you'll be able to tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, or the other person that I heard it from is right or wrong. It takes you till about 28 for your brain, to develop into being its full adult brain. Is that right? Is it about
it's
28?
25
25. So
actually. So
still it
the frontal lobe of
the
the
frontal
brain.
lobe, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
You're
then the
still
frontal lobe is responsible for like consequence. So
yeah.
like before we're 25, because they used to think that the brain fully developed when the body fully developed.
Hmm.
And that's quite a recent discovery. So sort of the last decade about
Okay.
that frontal lobe fully developing by the time you're 25. So the synapses and things. And
Yeah.
it's basically that we don't have the same idea of if I do this, this could happen.
Hmm.
We kind of know we're not stupid, but it doesn't really kick in. I mean, now I'm in my 40s, everything is consequence, especially as a mum. I'm looking at it going, well, if we do that, that's going to happen. And
Yeah.
you can sort of go the other way then.
Yeah.
But certainly at that age,
It
I
took me
did
till I was
not.
40 to start learning that, and I guess that came hand in hand with getting sober at 40. But yeah, so like going back, you know, you've just got remarried the second time. But you're still just getting into that fully developed brain
Yeah,
mentality.
yeah.
So yeah.
So I was 25, 26, something like that.
Yeah. So
And it
bang
was
on
a
that.
drunken row one evening
Hmm.
where I said, you can move out because it was my house at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And I said, you can move out. And I didn't see him from that day on. I
Wow.
got him, literally, it was a silly drunken row. I realized that I can't live like this.
Yeah.
Maybe my brain had kicked in at that point. Maybe
Yeah.
my brain had gone, look, this is what's going to happen. I just thought I can't live like this, and I'm not living like this. And so
And did
that was
you
the
did
end
you
of
miss
that.
him? Because as you say, it was a drunken row. Did you wake up the next day, he's gone, and go, "Oh my God"? Doesn't sound like you did.
I did and I didn't. I don't think I knew where my head was at,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
I knew I'd done the right thing, and it
Mm,
was painful to do.
of course.
But I just knew I'd done the right thing. I knew I had to see it through.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and I look back at it now and I realize how much gaslighting there was. I mean, I'll give you an example. I went shopping one day to Tesco
Hmm.
and I came back into the house with Tesco bags
Yeah.
and I got asked where I'd been. And I said, well, to Tesco. No, you haven't. Where have you really been?
Oh wow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was
In his
absolutely.
head, you'd gone out the house with Tesco bags, or gone to Tesco and bought something so you could get all these bags, and then gone elsewhere. Like,
I think it was actually even more simple than that. He just enjoyed pushing buttons in people.
ah,
And he actually used to brag about it and say that, oh, I know exactly which buttons to push in people. And so, yeah, I mean, older Louisa wouldn't have gone near him.
yeah.
There's just no
Was
way.
he a bit
But
older as well, or was he similar
he
age to you?
was, yeah, he
Yeah,
was about
yeah,
7 years older.
yeah.
Yeah,
And do you think he had a potential drink problem, or
massively.
right,
Mm,
right? So,
massively.
yeah,
And to be perfectly fair, then my dating history, I only was interested if somebody drank.
yeah,
You know, I wouldn't have been interested if they didn't drink
yeah.
because I'd been stung by that. And it wasn't, I realize now it wasn't the alcohol that was causing the relationship to be interesting.
Hmm.
But in my head, logically, I'd paired my first husband who didn't drink with the idea of boring,
Yeah, yeah,
which is total rubbish.
yeah.
And it was just that we weren't compatible. There was nothing wrong with him, but we
Hmm.
weren't compatible. We had nothing in common.
Yeah. And this is, I'm guessing, like maybe the 90s and maybe early noughties when this is
It
going
was,
on. Yeah.
yeah,
So it's kind of
into the
that whole
2000s.
culture of and then it wasn't just the lads going to Oasis and all of these types of things and Chris Evans. It was the ladette culture as well,
It
and I
was.
love Sarah Cox, and she's, her and Zoe Ball I believe is in recovery, but they were the forefront of that. They were on the radio, they were on the TV everywhere, but they were drinking pints to keep up with the guys, and it was just, we were like, we didn't know the dangers. I mean,
No.
we barely know the dangers now. So it was like, well, this is what we do. So, how did we get out of that without any issues? Well, some of us didn't.
And I think that was the thing. And I often thought when I was thinking back over things like the eating disorder that I had, and
Mm.
I look at it and I think, well, you look at the 90s and how toxic. And I think somebody shared on Instagram the other day, they shared a reel of, why was everybody so concerned with weight in the 90s and the 80s, 90s? And it literally showed clips of Victoria Beckham and Jerry Halliwell being weighed
Oh,
on TFI Friday to
oh,
see
really?
what they weighed and whether they'd lost their baby weight.
My God.
There were celebrities and actresses being stopped on the red carpet asking, well, you've put on weight. Aren't you worried that you won't get parts now? There was so much emphasis socially on weight, but there was also the additional. So I've just written a paper on this actually for my master's, but
Oh,
on
awesome. Yeah.
kind of social pressures for extreme dieting or eating disorders, and
Hmm.
whether it's external pressures or whether it can be internal drivers as well. And I think it's a mix of the two. And for me, it was also then the fact that I wasn't aware that I was, it's pronounced ADHD, autistic and
Oh,
ADHD.
okay. Right.
So they kind of contradict each other and balance each other out a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't realize that. And now I know that there's also quite a correlation between people that have a reliance on alcohol and eating disorders and neurodivergence.
Wow.
So it explains a lot because I always wanted to know why.
Yeah.
Why was I drinking more than everybody else? Why was I? And even then, I would always have my limits. I didn't like being drunk. I didn't like feeling the room spinning. So I would have a bottle of wine. I
Hmm.
might have a couple of beers. I knew my limits. I did not want to get drunk.
But you were still partaking in just keeping yourself at that kind of almost even keel, which is
Yeah.
quite a feat, but obviously you're still, I guess, maybe a little bit alcohol dependent because you needed it as that crutch, but you're still able to, well, I guess it's what they say, for want of a better word, functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
I hate the word alcoholic, but that's what it is. It fits all kind of cards. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not fond of the word alcoholic, but I also know that it works for some people. And I think you've got to go with whatever works for you. I think that's one thing with sobriety is that
Yeah.
there's just like no one rule for it. But
Yeah.
For me, I look at it and I think I quite like the term grey area drinker because that's
Yeah.
exactly what I felt.
Yeah.
I felt like I was drinking more than I should be. I would sometimes have conversations with friends and kind of try and work out how much are you drinking? How much am I drinking? Am I drinking? And if they said they were drinking the same amount as me,
Hmm.
I had this reassurance. And we're looking for that. We're looking for permission slips, I
Yeah.
think, a lot of the time from doctors or from nurses or I had a mentor at one point where I kept saying to her, I want to stop drinking. This was in my early 30s.
Hmm.
I just had my daughter because I did end up having two daughters,
Oh,
um,
fantastic. Yeah. Yeah.
which I still don't know how or why. Well, I do know how. Obviously, I'm not daft, but I don't know. I don't know
And
how
did
it
but
suddenly happened.
did they come after the drinking stopped?
No, no, in
No.
fact, both
Okay.
of them before. So I had Izzy when I was 31, 32,
Okay. Right. Right.
and then Charlotte when I was 42.
Hmm.
Um, and it was that, I mean, Charlotte was a catalyst all in her own, having a baby in your 40s,
Hmm.
kind of probably being perimenopausal at that point as
Yeah.
well.
Sure.
And early mornings, early wake ups. I could not. I'd gone from being this amazingly fit, trim, pregnant woman in my 40s that it was in COVID and nobody saw me. I was gutted, but I looked amazing, because I'd stopped
Mhm.
drinking, obviously, when I was
Yeah, yeah,
pregnant.
yeah.
And all the, the alcohol bloat, all of that
Yeah.
went. And I just had this perfect bump and that nobody saw. And then I had her, and the minute I had her, I sort of alcohol snuck back in because it was Christmas time, not
And
in
COVID.
vast quantities. Yeah, COVID as well.
Yeah.
But it just snuck back in, and then I wasn't breastfeeding after a certain point, and then it came back in with a vengeance,
Hmm.
and my weight just escalated. And it shouldn't, I know people like say you shouldn't go sober for the external reasons, or vanity but it
No, but
was soul destroying for me.
yeah. And was it
Gaining
wine
weight.
you were drinking or
Yeah,
beer?
wine and
Yeah, wine.
prosecco.
Yeah, yeah. Which has
And
massive calories in it. People
oh,
think,
it
oh, well, it's
does.
clear, it's just a fizzy drink, but they don't understand how much calories are actually in that. It's the sugar. It's the sugar is massive. Yeah.
Yeah, and the crap you eat when you're
Yeah.
drinking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily have been for me takeaways and things, but it was more like crisps.
Snacking, absolutely. The house is full of snacks for the kids wanting it, and you're in there at what knows, God knows what time, having like 3 packets of cheese and onion or four, and that's
Yeah.
that's it.
Oh, it
It's
always has to be cheese and onion.
yeah,
Yeah.
there we go, there we go. But that's the thing, like, because when I was drinking, I was, I would cook food because I enjoyed cooking because I could have some wine with the meal
Oh
that I was
yeah.
preparing, but I wouldn't eat a lot of it because I'd just be drinking. And then late on at night, I'd be like, oh, have we got any chocolate in? Have we got any crisps in? Like a big bag of nuts, and I would just sit and munch through an entire packet of, pistachio nuts, which
Mm.
is quite a noisy eat for someone sitting next to you. So yeah, so I don't really do that anymore. But yeah, so that's so the well, we've gone a bit off track here. So your second husband, and then you've kicked him out, and then you're kind of dating. I think you were saying just dating,
Yeah, I was
dating,
kind of
dating other
dating.
drinkers. Yeah,
I'm feeling very sorry for myself because, at that point, um, everybody else was pairing off, getting married, having children.
yeah.
And I hit a real low. And that's when I sort of started going to therapy. I started going to mentors and coaches or, anybody that could offer me some sort of knowledge about what on earth was going on. How can I turn this around? Um, and that's when I started to get interested then
Hmm.
in the brain, in how it works. And I was doing a lot of soul searching at
Yeah.
that.
But not thinking, and I know you're drinking, as you say, it's grey area drinking. So I think it's really tough for people that are grey area drinkers to think that that's causing the issue because you're not
Yeah.
obviously doing like what I was doing was, and this was only towards the end, but waking up in the morning, waiting for everyone to go out the house before I, cracked open a bottle. And it's like, I knew then obviously there was an issue, but there'd been an issue for a while. But with grey area drinkers, you're doing everything that society's saying you should do. You're going out for drinks with the girls and you're maybe having a glass of wine in an evening. There's the mummy wine culture, but you're not doing
Yeah.
anything wrong because your life is actually okay. You're just feeling a bit like something's missing. And that's to pinpoint and say this is the alcohol that's doing that is really difficult, I think.
And every time I raised it, so I raised it with one of my coaches, one of the people that were supporting me.
Hmm.
And I really admired this person. I still do. But I really admired their opinion on things.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they had this opinion that life should be easy
Yeah.
and that you should go with the flow. And, 99% of the time, that's fine. But when you're talking about something like alcohol and addictive substance,
Mm.
um, actually, there is a pain in walking away from it. So every time I would talk to her about, I want to stop drinking, I want to stop drinking, right, let's do 30-day challenge. Okay, I'm going to do a 30-day challenge. I get to day 5 and I go, oh, can I drink? I've had enough. I really, maybe I'm okay. Maybe I could just moderate. And then I'd talk myself back into it. And because she was a drinker
Mm.
and my friend and my drinking buddy, um, and so she would sort of say, "Oh yeah, do you know what? You're fine." And the ultimate phrase she said to me once was, "A bottle of wine a night's absolutely fine. I don't know what you're worried about."
Wow. A
And of course,
bottle of
now
wine
I
a
look at
night.
that and I think, oh my goodness, that's without anything else, got 70 units a week.
It's way over the binge drinking limit. Way over. I
Yeah.
think the binge drinking limit at the moment is 2 large glasses of wine, and that's
Yeah. Oh,
the
I was always
bottles.
over that. I was,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's one of the sort of biggest pieces of advice I would give to people is you've got to get aware of the problem
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
And as a grey area drinker, it is far too easy to put your head in the sand, to look at somebody else and think, I don't drink as much as them, or I do drink as much as them, so therefore it must be okay, like I was doing.
Yeah.
It's actually to write down the units. And I did that for quite a few years. I wrote down my unit count.
Like a drinking
Um,
diary. Yeah.
it was scary.
Yeah.
It was really scary. I had a little traffic light system. I had a spreadsheet with all my units on. If it was over a certain amount, it would be red. There would be amber and green. It was never green or amber. It was always red. And I think the biggest catalyst, because what happened then in my 30s
Hmm.
was that I was a single mum of my eldest daughter
Yeah.
for about 5, 6 years. And then I met, and that's, single mum on your own.
Mm.
Wine becomes your company. I mean, you've got nothing to do. You can't go anywhere. I didn't have anybody that could babysit. I never went out. I didn't really have friends in the area. So I was really quite isolated.
But the media of the mummy wine culture is telling
Yeah.
you that this is okay. And to have your friend who was, your kind of mentor as well in kind of fitness and nutrition and that, and she's saying it's okay to have a bottle of wine a night. We look for kind of validation, and once we
Yeah.
get that validation, we cling on to it and we're like, yep, it's okay. Someone so and so told me that I can do this. And then you're seeing all the media and the adverts on TV and I think, Facebook was kind of in its infancy, but it was still hammering home like, have a false bottom in your handbag that's got a little, straw that's coming out of it and you can drink your wine there. So all of these things are telling you it's okay what you're doing. You're fine. Yeah.
And we social proof. So we will look to gain evidence. We've also got things like confirmation bias. If we want to see evidence that drinking is okay, that's what we'll find.
Hmm.
If we want to see evidence that it's harmful, then that's what we'll find. We
Yeah.
will, whatever we're looking for, we will find it. And I was definitely looking for, 100% responsibility on my shoulders. I did not really want to do anything about it.
Hmm.
The minute it became slightly uncomfortable, I'd run back to alcohol because that was the easier route in the
Yeah.
short term, not the long term. And by the time I then met Dale, my third husband, who I
Hmm.
am still with, who's the woman who's had loads of husbands? Liz Taylor,
Oh,
is it?
Liz Taylor. Yeah, Liz Taylor.
I'm
Yeah.
not Liz Taylor.
No,
Um,
no, no. But
but,
they, but
but
Dale is the name that I've heard on your podcast. So when you said Dale, I was
yeah,
like, yep, this is the
this
one.
is it. Now we're at today. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, now we're up
So
to
I
date.
met
Yeah.
Dale and I met him through some work I was doing, and we met at a Christmas do, and we were both pretty drunk.
Hmm.
So much so, I think there was a fight at the do, and neither of us noticed because we were just so engrossed in talking to each
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
And true to my style, we went from 0 to 100 really, really quickly. And his style, actually, that's the one thing that works really well for us. We just both went, yeah, this is it,
Yeah.
fine. Moved in, got engaged, got married. And then I decided, maybe I would try again for a child, because I'd
Mhm.
always said one was enough, one was enough.
Yeah.
And that's when a year later, then
Oh,
we fell for Charlotte. And so yeah, that was amazing, and it was during COVID, and that I think actually that probably saved both our lives. The fact that I was pregnant, because I made a deal with him that if I was going to have a baby in my 40s,
yeah.
there was no way he was going to sit around me drinking beer.
Yeah.
So if I was going to do that for us, then and I'd stop drinking, obviously, that he had to join me. And he said, yeah, 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 I'll do that. So he stopped drinking with me when I was pregnant,
See,
and
that's
it was
amazing because I
amazing.
think I think a lot of I think a lot of guys should do that. You know, when their partner is pregnant, why are they still going out and doing things? I'm not saying they all do. Do you know what I mean? But it should be a thing. It's like, yeah, well, if you've got to give up boozing, then I will too. So I think that's really commendable of Dale to do
I
that.
mean, you're making lots of sacrifices as a woman,
Yeah,
physically making lots of sacrifices. You're feeling like crap as well.
yeah,
And the day we found, it was quite funny, the day we found out, it was, we'd just gone into lockdown. We'd gone and bought a massive like slab of like lager or whatever from, like stocked up because we were
yeah.
all limited, weren't we, as to how much time we could get out the house. And
And you didn't
like,
want to have to queue for 2 hours at Sainsbury's with 2 meters apart and all that
oh,
nonsense.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I grabbed a pregnancy test at the same time. Um, and just as he's cracking the first beer, I went and did the pregnancy test, and I was astonished to find that I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And so he got drunk that night. And he said, "Well, this is my last night of freedom. I'm going to get drunk." And he was sat in bed eating Monster Munch at 5 a.m. I could have killed him.
Well, it's the
Um,
crumbs, isn't it, Louisa? It's the crumbs. That's what,
it's the noise. I mean, can you
well,
choose a quieter crisp?
yeah, yeah. And I hope it wasn't pickled onion.
It was. It
It
was.
was pickled onion. But I see what he was saying. You know, he was like, well, we've got this big slab of lager.
I'm
I'm
going to try and get through it.
and he, yeah, I'm going to try and finish the lot. But he knew that he was gonna. So I'm
Yeah.
guessing he didn't really have a big issue with drinking apart from just kind of partying with you and whatnot, or was that?
I would say we both were as bad as each other.
But did he manage to do the 9 months as well with you? Did
He
he?
did,
Yeah. Well
and he
then.
had that goal. I mean, Dale's quite headstrong when
Yeah.
he wants to be, and he even with when I went sober, like now,
Hmm.
I said to him, "Would you support me
Hmm.
in the first 30 days?" Because what we kept doing was I kept saying to him, "We need to sort out our drinking. We need to sort out our drinking," because we were both drinking. We were both then rowing quite a bit. So there were lots of misunderstandings. We were tired. We've got like a toddler. And the sort of one of the big catalysts for us
Hmm.
was that we got a motorhome.
Right.
And what that meant, I mean, not it's a weird catalyst, isn't it, for a drinking problem, but it meant that we were constantly on holiday.
Yeah.
So I'd booked in loads of mini breaks just down the road, weekends away, bank holidays, that kind of thing. So there was always a holiday,
Yeah. And
always
what do you do when you're on holiday?
drink.
You drink, yeah. I
Yeah.
used to go camping a lot on my own, but a lot with my partner and the kids as well. And it was great. It was just my way of just kind of getting away and being able to drink. You know, it was a little mini
Yeah.
holiday for me, you know.
And you drink when you set up, don't you? When you're pitching up, you
You're
open
drinking when you're
first.
barbecuing, you're
Yeah.
drinking it's the whole thing, isn't it? It's the British camping or motorhoming holiday, yeah.
Yeah, very much. It's very sort of social. The amount of there was one particular weekend in the Brecon Beacons where I was supposed to be cooking tea,
Mm.
and we started chatting to people in their motorhome, like you do,
Mhm.
and then they're handing beers. And one thing I noticed with Dale was that he would never say no. Right. So
Mm.
somebody offered him a beer and then they gave him another one. Even if he already had one, he would say yes. Right. It was the rugby player in him.
Yeah, yeah,
And whereas me here, always trying to keep the right side of drunk.
yeah,
So if I'm starting to drink outside somebody's motorhome at 4 p.m., I'm making sure that I'm still sober for the kids. I'm
yeah,
keeping the right side of drunk. I'm slowing it down and I'm watching him getting progressively more and more drunk.
yeah.
And Dale, when he's drunk or he was drunk, was really hard to then maneuver and
Mm.
kind of get him away from, he'd think things were a good idea. And they wanted to go to this pub. I said, look, we've got the kids. We need to go home and get some food on. And that caused a row.
Mm.
And I said, I've had enough of this. We can't keep doing this. This is alcohol that's doing this
Yeah.
now. And so we kept vowing to have a break, or certainly I did. I was like, we've got to have some time off it. We've got to reset. And we had all these things in the diary, like a festival and a holiday. And by the end of it, we were both so knackered,
Yeah.
bloated. I've got pictures of us
Mm.
just looking so unwell. And I was getting physical pains. So I had IBS, I had an ache in my kidneys. I
Ah,
was getting physical pains, and my rosacea on my face was really flaring up.
Yeah. And
And I
just dry
couldn't,
skin as well, isn't it?
yeah,
It's just
I couldn't
horrible.
lose weight. I was desperately trying to lose weight, like all women after having a baby do.
Mm,
And I was just going up and up and up and up.
mm,
And I just felt a shell of myself. And all the time, I'm then working in clinic as a therapist,
hmm.
not specializing in alcohol at that point, but very much helping with habit change. And so
Okay. Yeah, it's
naturally,
quite
you
interesting.
know, so anxiety, that kind of
Yeah.
thing, and low mood. And I'd have clients coming in saying, you know, I want to do this or do that, quit smoking or look at weight loss or something like that. And then I'm sat there going, how can I sit here when I can't even nail this weight? But what's happening to my body now all of a sudden? Is it menopause? Is it the baby? What is it? And of course, I didn't want to think about booze.
Hmm.
And then one person really, I don't know, it pricked my conscience, I think. She came in and said, I'd like to cut back on drinking because I notice I'm arguing with my partner
Hmm.
more when I'm drinking. And as she's talking, I'm thinking, you need to do this. You need to do this for yourself.
Yeah, the light bulbs are switched on there, isn't it? You're thinking this is like we say in the fellowship, listen for the similarities and not the differences. And that's exactly what
Yeah.
was there. Yeah.
And it was just a massive light bulb for me. And so began the serious attempts to
Hmm.
stop. You know, I'd gone from titting about at it, is the way I would kind of put it, for a decade, and sort of stop paying lip service to it and actually do it. And that was the 22nd of October, 22. And I thought, how cool is that? It's a sober date, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So
It
we're
didn't
it's
stick.
October as well. You're in, so
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
just
I
the
was
tail
like,
end of it. And how
but
was
it
Gail
just,
when you were kind of thinking, did was when you were doing serious attempts at kind of thinking about it, did he join you or was he waiting until you'd kind of done it and then
I
partake?
think, I think probably what happened was that because I didn't get sober in October.
Oh, sorry, right. I thought that was
That's when I started.
that's when you started this
And
journey.
what would happen is we'd kind of, so we were doing it together, and he said, yeah, 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 I'll do it with you. And then come 4 o'clock, he'd ring me, and I realized this. He'd ring me at a certain time of day and go, how you doing?
Mm,
Like, yeah, oh, yeah, I'm just on the school run, or are we drinking tonight? I go, "Well, yeah, but we said we're not going to drink tonight. We've said we're not going to drink." And we'd have this kind of conversation. It was like on repeat, have this conversation. And of course, he was enabling me, I was enabling him, and we were doing it to each other.
yeah,
And so there came a point where I said, I don't care what he does. I recorded myself on my phone, which I've shared now on Instagram, and
yeah,
went,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
care what Dale does, don't care what he does. I've got a problem. I need to stop. And that was the point, I think, when he watched me resetting and resetting and resetting. And he was doing it with me, but it was messy because it would
Hmm.
only take one of you
Oh,
to
I know
a
Obi so
wobble.
well. Yeah, yeah.
You know, if you're not doing it for yourself, if you're doing it as a team like that, then, well, if one of you wobbles, what happens to the other one?
The other one caves straight away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he watched and watched and watched, and by that Christmas, I was exhausted. I was
Yeah.
absolute shell, and I said, I'm starting it January the 1st. He said, so will I. He said, I'm going to do a sober year. And that was the best thing that he could have said to me because I was like, oh,
Well, here we go.
amazing.
Yeah.
Not
Like
30
it's just the
days.
weight off your shoulders as well. Because I think, and I might be wrong, but I think when you're constantly, and let's not call it a lapse or a relapse at this point, but you're trying to, so you're maybe having like a week or two off, and then you're going back and you're kind of drinking what you were drinking before. So it's rapid binge drinking is what you're doing at
Yes.
that point, rather than the continual drinking. So your liver's used to it. You're giving your liver a little chance to repair, and I don't know the science, but I think obviously that's like a healing part of the liver, but it's weaker, and then you're pouring the toxins back in it. So it's really dangerous to be kind of doing that on off
Yeah.
kind of drinking. Yeah, rather than just
Yeah.
be drinking vodka every single day like I was. Obviously it's bad for you, but to have breaks and then go back can be quite dangerous as well. So when was your kind of last drop?
So that would have been New Year's Eve, 31st of December 2022. So I looked it up this morning, 822 days. So,
Wow, wow, amazing.
um,
That's just, yeah, yeah,
which is just like, it just feels surreal. I mean, I used to look at people on Instagram and I even shared like the early resetting journey, and I've left it up there on my Instagram
yeah,
page because I know that there are so many people out there that will say to me, I've tried it before, did 3 months, ended up going back to it.
yeah.
Okay, so let's look at why. Let's look at what you said to yourself at that 3 month point that saw you go back so that you can then deal with that, have some strategies in place rather than just thinking, well, I've tried it and failed.
Mm.
It's that perfectionist kind of thinking. And that's why I share that this was not my first rodeo.
No, no.
This was
Many
protracted.
years of kind of, and especially the last like 3 or 4 months to try and do it. So how was the, because I always say, I run my own little, and it's just a tiny little group, but it's sober season. So it's each, the equinoxes to the solstice is winter. We're in spring at the moment, obviously. So it's 3 months, 90 days. Because for me, when I first started, after the 3 months, it was like, oh my God, my skin was better. I was feeling better. I had more clarity in my head. And all the guys at the meetings were saying, yeah, the 90 days is this kind of key pinnacle point for, you know, kind of changing habits, getting rid of the old, and then, coming into the new. So I always try and do it for people that are thinking of, doing dry January. I'm like, nah, 30 days
I've
isn't
got to
enough.
be
Do
longer.
3 months. Yeah. And then you'll notice the difference. So how was the first kind of 3 months for you? It's January, no one's really doing much, but still, you think, oh, I'll just have
Yeah.
a glass of wine. Or was that in there? Or were you determined?
Well, Dale's birthday's a fortnight into January, so that was
Ah,
always like a real touch point. But because he'd said, and he'd signed up to this idea of 1 year no beer, and
yeah.
that was what he was telling the blokes at work because he's a site manager, a builder,
Mm,
and it's not really the done thing to be a
no,
sober
lads,
builder.
lads, lads, isn't it?
Ex-rugby player. Yeah, so it's like he could drink. He had hollow legs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing actually. And I often thought, I wonder if he's going to stick at this. I wonder. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to make it that it didn't matter what he was doing. It was just handy that he wasn't drinking in the early days around me because I don't think personally I could have dealt with that.
Yeah.
But for the first 90 days, it was head down, determination.
Mm-hmm.
I kept very focused. I listened to loads of sober podcasts, audiobooks, read every sober book out there.
Yeah.
I used what changed in the January, and I've shared this as well, is that from the October, I would say, titting about at it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I did at no point, this makes me laugh now, but at no point did I think, use your therapy tools, use your psychology tools on your sobriety, right?
Yeah, that's
Because,
mad, isn't it?
and
Yeah.
I literally, I thought to myself, why was that? And it was because there was a part of me that didn't actually want to succeed.
Yeah.
And the minute I admitted that to myself in the December, it was like, you're sabotaging yourself. You've got all these tools. You've got hypnotherapy. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I could record myself my own hypnosis to listen to keep my mindset on side, to help me relax in the evening. I need to be journaling. I need to be doing all of these things. And I'm not doing
You're
because
not
I
doing
don't
it.
actually want it to work.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just shifted everything around and I was like, I'm doing it. This is a project. This is project me.
Wow.
And I wasn't taking no for an answer in my own head.
Yeah.
So I used thought distancing techniques and all sorts of different things that then obviously now I help other people with. But it does get easier. And then it got to that 90-day, 100-day mark.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on holiday in the motorhome,
Mm-hmm.
Northern Wales, really rainy, up in Harlech. And I wrote 100 on the beach. There was one day that it didn't rain,
Yeah.
100 on the beach. And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it.
And Dale was 100 as well because he'd
He
stopped
is,
at
yes.
the same time.
He went
So
sober
yeah.
exactly the same time.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, he's not really a social media kind of person. So he's like, I keep trying to get him on the podcast. I've got no chance. But yeah, he's he didn't read anything. He didn't listen to anything. He didn't challenge. He's like one of those blokes that just goes, nope.
No,
I'm,
that's it. I had enough. I'm bullheaded. Yeah, I'm gonna do
yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah.
And he had
But
to do
it's
it his way.
mad. It's insane that whole thing he said, like Dale's birthday was 2 weeks into, January. But why do we have these associations like, oh, the birthday coming up, I need to be drinking for that? What, like, why?
Yeah.
It's like we're
It's
celebrating getting
marketing.
another year older. What was that? Sorry.
It's all marketing.
Yeah, of course it is.
That's what it
It's
is.
a Hallmark birthday card thing, and it's like you must be drinking at this. It's birthdays, weddings, Christmas, New Year, all of these things that you do then have to get through in your first sober year, But once you get
Yeah.
through them all, and it's like you've got the full set of Christmas, birthdays, whatever, and you're like, oh, I can do that, and then it gets easier. I mean, it starts getting easier after the 3 months, 100 days, I think. Yeah.
I think it does. And I think my last real proper, like, are you going to drink or not thought
Hmm.
was at 5 months. And
Okay.
that was, I was on holiday again.
Hmm.
Like when you've got a motorhome, you live on holiday.
Yeah.
On holiday, sunny day, and I was lay by the pool quietly,
Uh-huh.
and I saw somebody walk past with an ice cold lager. And I went, are you seriously not going to drink? Like, is this what we're doing?
Little devil on your shoulder, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just and at the time I had conjunctivitis weirdly, and I
Mm.
had a raging headache. I had my glasses on, and I'm lay there thinking, you've got conjunctivitis in both eyes. You've got a raging headache. It is a hot day. It's day one of the holiday. You are going to be a pain in the arse. If you drink, you're going to have such a cob on for the rest of the holiday. It's going to ruin it for everybody. Don't even go there. And I switched it off.
Yeah.
I was just, no, I'm not going there. And that was down in St. Ives, which we love
Beautiful.
down there.
But you had the
Uh,
strength to be able to do that. And it is that whole like angel devil kind of, on the shoulder. And as we get longevity into sobriety, it's the devil just starts to become like almost wispy and transparent, and then eventually it's kind of gone. It'll pop up every now and then, but the angel on the shoulder is very much stronger and in control now. So yeah, which is me. I know use that metaphor. I'm not religious, but it is that kind of
yeah, it does feel
cartoon
like
of it.
that though, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
It's like,
absolutely.
I mean, they're only thoughts. This is what I say to people. They're the way our brains work is they're prediction machines.
Hmm.
So we create habits because it takes less cognitive energy. So
Yeah.
our brain is always scanning the environment, looking for threat and pulling on like past experience and stories to go, okay, is this relevant? Do we
Yeah.
need to think about this? So when I was lay by that pool, what happened was there was just a memory there. There was muscle memory. And my brain went, okay, well, you'd normally drink. Are you seriously doing this? And it's
Hmm.
just a thought. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean I'm going to act on it. I can step back from that thought and argue with it, which I did.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's basically what you need to be doing in sobriety is constantly just keeping a listen out for it. I mean, goodness me, it could happen at any point because something goes on. Last year I had a cancer scare back
Oh,
end of last year, which was really, really 2 weeks of really being worried for my
yeah,
health.
proper panic and stress.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was horrendous. And I was walking down the lane here and I thought, well, if ever there's a reason to drink,
Mhm.
it's this.
There you
And
go.
and that was the thought that I had. And I thought it was quite interesting that the language, it wasn't that you want to drink, it was, well, if ever there's a reason to drink,
Yeah.
it's this. And I thought, right, okay,
Kind of
not,
like you've got nothing to lose now, so
yeah.
come and join
But I
us. Yeah.
mean, the thing is that I didn't know if I had cancer. I was going through tests.
Hmm. Hmm.
It was looking pretty likely,
Oh,
actually.
Jesus.
So I
Okay.
don't know. I've obviously got somebody up there looking down on me.
Yeah.
But actually, what I thought in that moment was that if I have got cancer,
Hmm.
then I've got a battle on my hands,
Yeah.
and alcohol is not going to help that. In this interim period of not knowing, I'm worried. Of course I am. I'm tearful. I'm emotional. I'm trying to hold it together for the kids.
Hmm.
Um, Alcohol wouldn't help that. I'd fall to pieces.
Yeah.
I'd
Well,
be,
also you'd be depleting your body's resilience and energy and well-being to fight that. because
Yeah.
you're depleting yourself by putting poison in yourself. So you want all the strength and health that you have to fight that. You know, thankfully you've not had to do that. But yeah, alcohol, what's it doing? It's we all know how bad we feel on a morning waking up. If you're dealing with cancer and you've got to fight that, why are
Yeah.
you still drinking? Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it just didn't make any sense to me. So I found it very easy. I even smiled at the thought and thought, oh, you're trying that one on.
yeah,
That's interesting. Okay, let me just argue with that. And it is about just keeping vigilant because that was what just under 2 years sober.
yeah. So it's
It's
early
keeping
days and
vigilant.
but
Yeah.
they do they pop in and they try and test us, and now like you say, I kind of laugh them off, and it's I'm nearly coming up for 5 years in August, and it's I'm not saying that something further down the line that might be massively traumatic isn't going to test me a lot more than just the odd thought of, oh, it's a nice day, I'm going to go and have a drink down the beer garden. But at the end of the day, that's when I think about that, I think, well, let's see what happened when you used to do that. You'd go down in the afternoon and you'd have a couple of beers, maybe down by the river at a pub beer garden, but then you'd stay there all freaking day, and you wouldn't eat, and then it would get to like when the sun starts going down and people are huddling, you've not maybe brought a jacket, you're getting cold, all of these bad things, but you're also being a bit of an asshole as well because you've been drinking all day and you've got to get home. And it was never there might be a few times in the past where I've been sensible about it and gone home and maybe continued drinking in the house, but not been out and been in a pain. Do you know what I mean? It's so every
Yeah.
time I think to myself, oh, it's a nice day. It's a day for a beer garden. I think, no, it's not. It's rubbish. I'd rather go for a walk or a hike in the hills, with my partner and have a tea up the top of the hill, and do that rather than go to a pub beer garden. Where at the end of the day, you're surrounded by other loutish behavior, depending on the pub you go to, obviously. But it's we kid ourselves, and that's the thing. We kid ourselves that there was this dream time when alcohol was giving us all these good things, and it really wasn't. Yeah,
Yeah. You've got to knock alcohol off the pedestal and put
yeah,
sobriety on it,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. And it's
Um,
interesting what you're saying because they told me I went to a rehab facility like 5 years ago. In fact, 5 years ago now. It was in during the first lockdowns, and one of my counselors told one of my key workers told me this really interesting kind of analogy, and he said the brain works on almost like I suppose like a kind of office, and he said the majority of what's happening at the time is, let's call it the receptionist that's dealing with all the day-to-day things coming in. He said, like, how often when you're driving home from work do you actually remember the journey home? He said the only time like the managers and the topper bosses will come down to the front desk is if, like, say, a cow steps out in front of the car, and then it's
yeah.
like, oh my God, the receptionist can't deal with that, so we have to use the other parts of our brain. But the majority of the time, we're just on an easy kind of auto drive. And
Yeah.
if we are drinking or just early days of recovery, then the auto drive can quite easily just go. And then you're sat in a pub or you're sat at home with a bottle of wine. You're like, how did I get here? Because you've got to be mindful and vigilant all the time with these kind of early days, especially. I mean, we've all still got to be vigilant, but it does get easier, doesn't it?
It does. I always say confident, not complacent.
Yeah, that's good.
So just watch for complacency. Stay confident. I mean, I think don't go into it thinking this is going to be really awful. This is going to be really hard. I mean, because obviously then you're going to experience it being really awful and really hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but how we think about things is so massively important. And I sort of saw it as a challenge to myself. I saw it as like, right, come on, project me now.
Yeah,
Come on, you've been
yeah.
you've been tearing yourself apart for decades with alcohol.
Yeah.
Now
And not
you,
having not having fun times that you should be with Dale and the kids. You've got this beautiful motor home. You're going away on these little lovely mini breaks, but ending up like with a slab of lager and kind of falling out with each other. That's
I
not,
know.
it's not ruining your life in like the fact that you're losing jobs and this, that, and the other, but you're losing that quality time of when the kids are still young and you and Dale are still, just in enjoying each other. And
Yeah.
that's been taken away from you. You're like, this is not cool. Yeah.
And I think for that first year with the motorhome, we had to be really vigilant. And
Mhm.
that was an interesting one But as time's gone on, like last year, we went to the south of France in it, and
Nice.
I was running through vineyards. It was absolute insanity. I'm smiling, looking at the grapes on the vine, going, "Yep, that's where they should be."
Yeah.
Not in a bottle.
Mhm.
And actually, it's not that attractive when you see all the flies around them and things like that. It's kind of like, no, that's actually I'm quite pleased with the fact that I've done that.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
we're going to the lakes at Easter.
Uh-huh.
No thoughts of alcohol, no
No.
thoughts of
No.
anything. Looking for cafes.
Um,
Um,
what's your kind of thoughts on AF stuff? Do you use them at all, or just
I
not?
have done. I have done. I sort of did in the early days when
Yeah.
I wanted something.
Hmm.
Uh, Particularly on a Friday night or something, I'd be like, I wanted to kid my brain a little bit in the early days that
Yeah.
actually this is your reward. And then quickly I realized that my reward could be any drink.
Yeah.
So my reward is now a soda stream, fizzy water,
Nice. Nice.
extra bubbles,
Yeah.
loads of like ice if it's in the summer. So yeah,
Yeah.
I just found that by choosing a drink that you could drink anywhere. So everybody's got fizzy water.
Yep. Yep.
Put it in a nice glass, bit of ice, slice of lime or lemon,
Hmm.
and I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I never used to drink fizzy water at all, but I'm just a massive, addict of fizzy water now. I do put like a little bit of cordial in it and things like that. But yeah, but there's so many different things. Like there's kombucha, and yeah, there's just a lot of. My partner's vegan, so we go a lot to these little vegan cafes, and they've got some fantastic little wonderful drinks. Some of them do sell alcohol, which I always find quite weird as well. Because I'm
Yeah,
not
we
saying
were
that
in a
vegans
cafe
don't
that did.
they don't
Yeah,
drink alcohol, but it's like veganism's it's a healthy way of life, healthy way of living. So being plant-based, and then it kind of ruins it sometimes when you see alcohol in the menu, and you're like, yeah, get rid of that. That's poison. So yeah,
yeah.
Louisa, if you could go back to when you kind of saw alcohol, it was just becoming an issue. Would you go back and kind of change that aspect of your life?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I don't think I'd go back and change any element of my
Hmm.
life because, without sounding cheesy, it's kind of made me who I am.
Not
And I
cheesy
don't
at
think
all.
I'd have
That's
been
what,
resilient in
yeah.
the same way.
Well, you
I think,
learn these life experiences, isn't it? And I
yeah.
guess now, what you do. And should I call you Doctor Louisa? Are you a doctor?
No, I'm not a doctor yet,
Not
PhD
yet, but you're working on that.
next.
Yeah. But you're obviously learning even more with your own life experience in how to treat your kind of service users and patients as well. So,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
it is. And so, sort of, I'm doing my master's in psychology at the moment, which is why I
Hmm.
say I'm not a doctor yet. I have joked that I would love to do a PhD.
I think you should.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
it's a lot of money, a
yeah,
lot of money, and it's a lot of time and effort. Honestly,
yeah,
the master's is enough. So I don't know. I might stop at the master's and just sort
yeah.
of leave it there. But yeah, I mean, why not? And
Why
this is
not?
the thing. It's like it's not that you have to go out and do all these things when you're sober. Like I learned to run last year, and then I ran with. I saw you interviewed Michael. I
Mm.
ran with him in Vitality 10K. He talked me into that. So that was
Oh,
our
wow,
first
cool, cool.
10K together.
Yeah.
Both of us started running at the same time. And, we've got all of these things that you can do because you've got more energy. And I had this abundance, my ADHD side
Yeah.
kind of has this abundance of like needing to be entertained constantly.
Yeah.
When it came to, I'm nearly finished my master's now, so it's nearly 2 years. So when it came to that, I just thought, I've always wanted to do it. I've never believed I can.
Hmm.
Right, I'll go for it.
What's to stop you? But we've got all this time, and you know, well, I always say that the time it's not like we're making more time, but we're not got it spent in bed or feeling sorry for ourselves or just sitting in an evening watching TV. And don't get me wrong, I do watch stuff on the laptop, but even after I moved into this cottage like nearly 4 years ago, after about 6 months, I just sold my TV. It was I was coming home from work and it was kind of winter and I was just coming in and I would just put the TV on, and okay, it wasn't connected to the aerial, so it was only like Netflix and iPlayer and all that. It was online, but I was just putting it on and finding a film to watch to just zone out. And I thought, I'm meant to be writing a book here. I want to be writing a book about my experiences in alcohol, like a kind of memoir. And I just wasn't doing that because I was coming home and making excuses. So I just sold the TV and I was like, no, I need to focus on other things. And this is the time that we get back because otherwise I'd have been sat at home with a bottle of wine, bottle of vodka. Yeah. So
That is so cool. I
yeah.
mean, I would love to say I could do that. I watch a lot less TV
Yeah. Yeah.
now because there's always something to
But with
read.
kids, it's difficult as well. I mean, with Jen, my fiance, she's got three kids, and they don't have a TV, but we have a projector down there, so that there isn't just a place they can come on and switch it on. Although sometimes, well, because I put a fire stick in it, so maybe it's my issue. They've worked out how to use that. We used to just have to plug the laptop in, and there was never a laptop about if we were out. But now they can just switch it on themselves. So that's maybe something we need to look at. But it's not a big deal. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
out of the way. There's not a focal point of a TV in the living room, which I like. I like that.
that's
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah, yeah. So, do you still think that alcohol has a place in our society today?
Oh, I don't like alcohol. I try not to get on my soapbox
Yeah.
with it. Um, I don't actually. I really don't. I know that somebody that I was talking to said that prohibition didn't work, but I've just read a study actually that
Hmm.
prohibition, although whereas it did force alcohol into the underground,
Yeah, the black market,
it
the alcohol.
did solve a lot of the health problems and deaths at
Wow.
that time. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about prohibition. I'm talking about the fact that I think we should be educated
Yeah.
on it. And I think people should have proper education because I saw a Facebook post yesterday and it
Hmm.
was from something like The Observer talking about, again, trying to justify a couple of glasses of wine being good for you. And you've got quite a few comments on there. You've got the pithy drinking comments on there, pass my beer, I'm not listening, what a load of rubbish. And then
Yeah.
you've got your sober people coming out and saying, well, actually, yes, it is a toxin. You should, it's a carcinogen. And there was one person that was almost commenting on every positive post about sobriety saying, rubbish, this is brainwashing. There's nothing wrong with alcohol. And I thought, my goodness me, it's so divisive,
Yeah.
isn't it? But then I wonder what I would have, I wonder what I would have been like. But then I always knew it was bad for me. I always knew there was like, I couldn't drink the way I was drinking
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
potentially not have problems. I don't think
I
I ever.
don't think I knew. I don't think I knew health wise that it was bad for me. I knew it was stopping me getting on in my life. I wasn't really I wasn't living to my fullest extent of what I could do with my life and be who I was. I was just kind of in a bit of a humdrum job. I'd left university and ended up working as a porter in a hospital, and I was going through many different jobs and. Our evenings were just spent like this was when I was in a kind of codependent relationship, and we both one would say, "Oh, we need to give up alcohol," and it wasn't because I knew it was a carcinogen or it was bad for my health. I thought all that stuff would happen much later on in my life, rather than when I was just coming up from my 40s, And luckily, touch wood, I didn't get any kind of illnesses from it. But yeah, I had no idea really how bad it was for my health at that point because I think I think the alcohol, big alcohol, has a massive part to play, and I think the government needs to stop them allowing to, what's the word, not regulate. Um, they're allowed to advertise and do whatever they want. The
Yeah.
government hasn't,
It's
well,
unregulated, isn't it? Almost.
unregulated.
It's
That's the
like
word.
it's the
Yeah,
opposite.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're allowed to regulate themselves, which I found out, and I was
Yeah.
disgusted
Self-regulate.
by
That's
that.
it. That's the word. Yeah.
Self-regulation. So they're like, well, we can do what we want. Cigarettes, on the other hand, way back when the government had to step in and said, you're not allowed to have people in an advert now. Then after that, they stopped. You're not allowed to advertise. Now it's
Yeah.
not even allowed branding. So I think and I hope alcohol will eventually go that way. But there needs to be more warnings, and I believe France and Germany are starting to put on the bottles that it can cause cancer, which is if
Yeah, I
nobody,
didn't know. I
yeah,
mean,
I
did you
didn't
know? I
know.
didn't know it.
7 different types, and it's like, but people are, and breast cancer being a massive one. It's like you've got all this mummy wine culture, and then when they're kind of 40s, 50s, possibly developing breast cancer. Why is nobody shouting about that? It's so
I think,
worrying.
yeah, I agree. I think that's the probably the point that I would make is that it's not about prohibition because I don't think you can remove it completely, but I
No.
just don't think it's fair that there is no balancing to all the alcohol marketing. And I went to a garden
No.
centre the other day, and all the signs are all about like a gin palace or a prosecco den, or and you're like, this is a bloody garden centre,
Yeah, yeah, like the
and it's
beer
just
shed at the
everywhere.
bottom of the garden that they
Yeah,
turn it into bars and things like that. The the charity that I work for over here is called Motivate. It's an addiction support charity. They've started going into the schools and doing little talks in the schools, and I definitely think there is a shift in alcohol, like attitudes towards alcohol with the kids. They might still, when they're like 14, 15, see it as this glamorous thing like you did. But I think once they start, like if someone was to say to, a youngster today, such and such and thing's bad for you, regardless of being alcohol, they'll go and Google it. They'll go and research it because they're interested and they know they've got that ability on the palm of their hands. So I think if someone was to say, listen, alcohol is really bad for you, they'll go and Google it. And if they start seeing it causes 7 types of cancers, they're like, well, why am I going to do that? I think they're a lot more savvy and they have the kind of resources these days. So I'm hoping that we're seeing a bit of a shift in the youngsters coming through. And equally they don't want to be caught on film making a complete tit of
yeah.
themselves because then it's all over the internet.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've made a complete tit of myself on film many times probably.
No.
But it's I think my daughter, my 13-year-old has said, and she's watched me go sober, which is the best thing I ever shared with her,
Hmm.
actually, because she was at the age at sort of 10, 11 years old, where actually she knew what was going on.
Yeah.
She knew what was happening. She saw me struggle, and she actually said, "It's addictive, Mum."
Wow.
And so I've asked her if she'll drink, and she said, no, not really. I don't think so. She said, I might try it,
Hmm.
but she said, I want to try it around you. And if I do, she said, but I really can't. She doesn't like feeling sick.
Hmm.
So, I mean, you remember your first
Yeah.
drink. It was vile. It's horrible and it makes you feel terrible.
Yeah.
But it's that addictive nature. Now she's switched on to the fact it's addictive.
Hmm.
And I think I always had weirdly this utmost respect for gambling, for example, and drugs. So I never ever gambled and I never did drugs because I thought, I know it's really addictive and I know I will probably like it.
Hmm.
So therefore, I'm not even going to have one and I won't ever experience it, or
But
I'm
it's
not ever going to do it once.
it's interesting that someone was saying a while back that we still say drugs and alcohol. We don't. It's in the same sentence, but we're not saying it's just drugs because alcohol's a drug. But
Yeah, it
because
is. Yeah,
we
which I did then. I just separated them out. But yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
we
I did
separate
think
them
of drugs.
out, and
Yeah.
it's like drugs and alcohol. Yeah, they're both in the same category. They're both causing similar issues, but because we say drugs and alcohol, and we know that alcohol is legal, in our heads, it makes us think, well, it's not as bad as the drugs. Drugs are definitely bad because as soon as you have, and I was the same growing up, I was like, as soon as I have one drug, that's me, I'm going to be hooked. And then I learned that really that's not the case, and then I started partaking in it. But, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't smoke weed or, cannabis because that's the gateway drug. No, it's alcohol that's the gateway drug. I wouldn't have done cannabis if I hadn't, had a drink. So it's kind of, but because we separate them out and we want to say this is a gateway drug because it's a drug and keep them separate, alcohol's okay because we made it legal. So I think there's a lot of things that we need to kind of start changing and just opening people's eyes on it. I'm not saying I'm going to change the government's position on it because they clearly are making an absolute buttload of money
There's a lot
off
of
of the
money being
taxes on
made.
it.
Yeah.
But I
And
think,
let's face it, they all drink heavily as well.
yeah, well, they've got a bar in Westminster, don't
Yeah.
they? Which what was it, a few years ago, there was some pretty weird things going on in there. I think someone got caught there was somebody I think they were putting is it Rohypnol and the date rate drug in drinks? Yeah, there was a bit of a scandal a number of years ago that this was going on in the bar in Westminster. So it's kind of like, yeah, drinks for the boys and all that kind of stuff. It's a bit, I mean, I'm not saying it was any of the MPs that were doing that, but it was, at that place of power, there's all that going on in a bar. I'm sure people will probably message me and tell me if I'm wrong or whatever, but I'm sure I heard that a few years ago that there was something going on. So yeah, but I think we are starting to see a shift. Like 10 years ago, I don't think Instagram was even the kind of fountain of support that it is now, which is just unbelievable. Even in 5 years since COVID, it's just kind of exploded, and there's no kind of group of topics on Instagram that I've seen that is almost completely toxic free. I'm sure you still get the odd little ones. I don't see it. I just see support, love, and you just a wealth of happiness of people getting sober. So would you say you regret getting sober, Louisa?
Oh God, no. It's the best thing I have ever done, and it is the
Yeah.
thing I'm most proud of. It was, in a way, the hardest thing I've ever done,
Yeah.
but it has completely changed my life. It has unlocked something in me that confidence, self-worth, because I think I could always put on a smile and an act
hmm
that I was having a nice time.
Yeah, yeah, we get very versed in that, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was pretty good at that. Look like you know what you're doing, look like, it's particularly in my 20s now I'm talking,
Yeah.
and just put a smile on and pretend you're having a nice time, and then you'll be having a nice time. And I think that's probably where my tick boxes came from, because I thought, well, if I do all these things, then maybe I will actually have a nice time.
Yeah.
But of course, alcohol robs you of the actual joy, natural joy of
Yep.
things with anhedonia and that kind of hedonic set point there, which once that resets in sobriety, which takes a few months
hmm
for that to reset, then I don't really call it a pink cloud. I sort of hit a pink sky.
Oh,
uh,
nice. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
and then there's the odd cloud that sort of floats across the sky, that is just life that you deal
Yeah.
with. But overall, my experience of life is 100% different.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, what kind of advice would you give to someone that was, grey area drinker, sober curious, wanting to kind of start, or even was in like the first couple of weeks or month of sobriety and on the journey?
I think the advice I would give somebody that's a grey area drinker, because it's so easy to stay stuck, right? If you're
Yeah.
not hitting a rock bottom, I don't say that I hit a rock bottom. I say it was death by a thousand cuts.
Nice. I like that. Yeah.
Tiny little things that just built up over time. And I think we can spend too long in denial at that point.
hmm
So there's nobody telling you need to stop. In fact, most of the time they're telling you need to keep drinking
Yep.
because they want their drinking buddy. So I would say ignore everybody else.
hmm
Listen to that inner voice. You know whether your drinking is a problem for you.
hmm
It doesn't matter if you're just drinking at the weekend, or if you can have nights off, or if you can take 30 days off. You know deep down what you want. And in a sense, you have to get really, really stubborn and focus on you, project you, like I did. Just literally listen to everything, read everything, journal, do everything you can to get your mindset on side.
hmm
And don't anticipate problems. Keep looking for the benefits of sobriety, because your brain will want to come up with all the reasons why this is a bad idea, because
Yeah.
it wants it wants the dopamine, it wants the quick hit. So it's going to tell you, what, you're doing this forever? Are you kidding me? What, even in that holiday? All inclusive, Magaluf,
Yeah.
So you've just got to go, that doesn't matter. I'm
Yeah.
coming back to today. And, AA obviously focus on the day.
Yeah. Yeah, one day at a time. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you and getting to know you, Louisa. Thank you so much for coming on after hours.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's been a real pleasure to chat
good.
to you. Obviously, I'd love to have you on my
Well,
podcast.
yeah, I mean, I'd love to as well. Yeah, so that's absolutely.
That's a
Now tell
date.
me, Gary was saying to me that people have been saying that my little cottage looks a bit like a bar. Can you see? He was saying that he was saying the other night. He goes, "Yeah, people have said if you go on Jimmy's podcast, it's almost like he's doing it from a little bar, and we've called it the
It
dry
just looks
arms now."
cozy. The dry arms. I
The
love
dry
it.
arms. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. It's a little thatched cottage. I live up, in the hills in Isle of Man, but I'm moving out of here in a month's time, so I'm moving in with my fiance. So it'll be
Oh,
big changes, but this
congratulations.
place has been amazing for me. I moved in here coming up to a year sober, so it was quite early for me to just be left to my own devices, but it's been an absolute little magical retreat for me. So I will miss it, but it's kind of fallen apart, and the people that own it, they don't really want to do much to it. So I'm like, yeah, it's time to move on. They'll
Yeah.
probably gut it and turn it into an Airbnb, so I can say that I'm one of the last kind of private residences of it. So yeah, the dry
Yeah.
arms will be closing, but the podcast shall continue. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Louisa, and have an amazing day. Yeah,
Thank
go
you.
and enjoy
Thank
the
you,
sun.
Andrew. I will do.
Yeah. Cheers. See you soon, Louisa. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
So thank you, Louisa. Excuse me. I just want to reiterate that you don't have to be at rock bottom. You don't have to be, fully dependent so that you require a detox from withdrawal. Um, it just has to be affecting your life, and I think a lot of people, that's hard for them to see because, even if you go to the doctors with depression or anxiety, from my experience, they don't say to you how much you're drinking. They'll just put you on, citalopram or whatever beta blockers. They need to start asking about people's drinking habits first, because first and foremost, anxiety and depression is caused by alcohol. If you're only doing it on a small level, of course you feel like crap the next day, and maybe for 2 or 3 days afterwards you feel a bit down, you feel low, because it's depleting all of the serotonin and the dopamine in your brain. So you're gonna be down, and I think this is where people need to start looking at their habits, their drinking habits, and seeing how often they are kind of feeling down after a drink. And you know what? Forget about dry January. Just if you've got any kind of thoughts that are kind of related to what Louisa went through towards the end, just give up alcohol for 30 days. And I tell you what, if you struggle to give up alcohol for 30 days, then, no one that doesn't have a drinking problem should struggle to give it up for 30 days, just to see what the outcome would be. If you are struggling to give up for 30 days, then, we need to look at a bigger picture here. So, yeah, sorry, I just felt really passionate. I just listened to the episode again, and it's just really hit home that, there's so many people that are struggling that are not as bad as what I was. I thought, my God, I need to get sober. Because I'm the worst case scenario, I'm a useless, hopeless case. But there are a lot of people out there that are, just having, maybe 2-3 glasses of wine a night, or, bottles at the weekend. That's still too much. So yeah, people, come on, let's have a rejig and a rethink about our alcohol usage, because you don't want to all end up at rock bottom. So yeah, thanks again, Louisa. Everyone, stay safe, stay supportive, stay strong, and stay sober. See you next week.